This is Sandman1MT and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, hit that like and subscribe. We're going to get right down to it. Today, we're going to be discussing 6 things that Wuthering Waves needs to fix to make it a better gaming experience for players as a whole and to avoid the Hoyofication of this video game. That way we can keep this a great gaming experience for everyone involved and keep this game on the right track. The first problem we're going to go ahead and address is the sequence problem that Wuwa has. If you invest in multiple copies of a character, like I have an S6 Brand, an S6 Cantarella, and also an S6 Cartithia. And many of my other characters have multiple sequences as well. Well, it takes away from the enjoyment in Overworld because it's way too easy. And that also goes ahead and makes the tower sometimes a little too easy. And if we want to have competitions with our friends or other co-op members, they're going to complain that we have multiple sequences and not a fair competition. Well, we should be able to go and turn those on or off since we purchased them. They obviously turned off and they turned on, so they should be able to add this very easily and quickly. Just give us a red or green indicator when the sequences are on or off. We'd still have to turn them off in proper order. You just couldn't jump around and say, hey, I only want to have sequence 1, 3, and 5. I don't want to use these others. You'd still have to turn them off in the proper order, but they wouldn't have to make too many adjustments in the game. And this would allow more of a fair competition for us to come up on our own to play out in the open world and tower challenges among our friends or other co-op members. This is something that they need to go ahead and address. Now this brings up the second point that they need to go ahead and take care of is the overworld is much too easy. Even when I started first playing the game after about 6 or 8 weeks, I started clearing it with only a single character or maybe a 2-man team. And now that my account's progressed even further, it's much worse now. I pretty much obliterate anything in the open world with almost any of my characters. And they need to make the open world much more difficult than it is, to make the enjoyment be repeated. So that way we can replay some of the areas, fight some of our favorite monsters that are out in the overworld and everything else. And they also need to go ahead and fill up a little more of the overworld with some enemies as well, because there's a lot of empty areas in Septimon as they're flying around that they could have actually put some enemies or at least some vertical or horizontal dungeons where we could have gone in like those little swords that come out to where we fight enemies for instances, so that way the system wasn't overloaded. But they definitely need to make the world harder, and they can incentivize the first level of the hardness by increasing the rewards by 10% for like your drops and everything else that you do throughout the day. But any other progression and or more difficult levels would just be for bragging rights. So my suggestion would be having the most difficult challenge of the overworld to be equal to the hologram challenge, the hardest one. And we should be able to go ahead and have our world that hard if we want to, and then be able to go ahead and dial it back. Even if we only can change it once or twice a day, that would be fine. Just go ahead and allow this option to go ahead and give us challenges. This would also allow other players to come in your open world and say, hey, can you go ahead and make it from Septimon over to Raguna without dying going through this path over here? And whoever makes the furthest and the fastest would be the winner of it. It would actually make for more competition to go and fill in the gaps when the events fall flat or we've completed them. So I don't understand why we can't have more difficulty racing, because this would be almost a slider switch. There are probably some complications into it that I'm not aware of since I don't develop games. However, they do need to address this issue, because it's one of the reasons that many of us go ahead and play it is for the storyline in the open world, and the tower and those other ones are just for us getting wishes and everything else. And this segment's left out. And it almost makes me not want to invest more into characters for sequences, so it actually costs them money because of this. But if it was more difficult, we'd still want to go and invest in those sequences to have those challenges. And I wish they'd go ahead and address this issue as well. Now, my next problem that I have with Wuthering Waves is in their co-op mode. They keep on insisting that a single-player game has co-op. I'm all for it, but they need to go ahead and do their due diligence as well. One of the problems with co-op mode is there's no in-game voice chat. I have a controller or a keyboard in my hands. How am I supposed to go and play the game and still communicate with my teammates about what we're doing? We need to go ahead and create a small little town that could be a portal that we can go into. That way you knew that people wanted to be in co-op, and we could create our own guilds, self-govern a little bit and everything else, keep the bad riffraff out from having an attitude, but it'd allow us to go ahead and build a bigger community and make this game much better. So if they want us to play things like Peaks of Prestige and everything else, I love playing poker and games like that. But the reason I do those games is because I like to go and talk with other individuals and maybe tease them a little bit when I win, or I get a little bit of grief myself when I lose. It kind of adds to that whole excitement of the game co-op. But if I just have someone randomly bombard my world, honestly, it's just a nuisance. And I don't like being forced into co-op, but if I had a guild and some teammates and everything else and some friends I'm making out of this, I'd feel a little bit differently about this. And this issue would be great if they, like I said, they give us guilds and in-game voice chat. I don't want to do it from Discord or someone else's channel. It should be in-game. However, if you're a little shy or anything like that, you'd still be able to go ahead and use the typing and everything else to communicate as well. I've done this in other games like Black Desert, Vindictus, or Dragon's Nest. Mind you, those had some PvP in it, but if they gave us other events that we can go ahead and compete challenges and stuff, and like those card games, it would go ahead and be cool to have more co-op options in this game as well that are more battle-oriented, of course, besides just card games. But everyone can go ahead and win this situation and get what they want. And if you don't want to talk, you don't have to. And if you do want to talk like myself, well, we have that option. In between all the different members, it'd make a complete community. I hope they go ahead and hear this message and you guys help get it out, because I'd love to play with some of you guys with these games and everything else and have some of these challenges. So let's get this message out there and let's get to the next problem. Now, this is a problem for us story watchers out there, is when you're in immersion mode and you're going through any of the voice storylines, there's always a confirmation in it. If you have the text up, it'll automatically play through, but if you actually hide the text, it will stop. And you have to go ahead and pull the text back up to allow it to continue playing through. Now, to me, this seems to be a glitch that can be easily solved by a little bit of coding and everything else. What makes this extra annoying is that basically the confirmations are every 6 to 15 seconds. And as me, as a content creator, when I've done my storylines, for a 5-minute segment, it's literally anywhere from 60 to 80 edits to go ahead and get the text out. And then I have to still go ahead and do the work to go ahead and fix the audio through my software, and then I still have to go ahead and upload it. Now, this goes in really hard for a content creator, but it also ruins the immersion of the story for those of us who played the game and just simply want to be rewarded with the storyline and to watch it through without the text. I really hope that they go ahead and fix this issue, because it's a simple programming thing that they could do in the next update. Now, this next problem has been mentioned by a lot of different content creators, including Seqences himself. And it's the fact that we don't have any combat events. Like he said, it's going to be over 110 to 120 days after patch 2.7, and we haven't had any combat events. That's unacceptable. I do not enjoy those challenges like we've had, like Title Defense Simulator. It's annoying. I still have gameplay to still doing it to go ahead and get another 100 asteroids, and I don't know if I'm going to bother with it, because this isn't the reason why I'm playing this game. I don't like side platformers, and honestly, I don't come here to play card games either. I'd be willing to play the card games like I mentioned earlier in the co-op events if we had some kind of guild and some chat that we can talk to each other, but they don't have that. And besides that fact, I'd still want to have combat events. I want to be able to communicate with my teams and everything else that we can talk to each other, but we don't even get that chance. One of my favorite events was the QB challenge, where we got the chance to use our teams with different echoes that we can custom make to make up for some lack that our characters might have had, but they haven't put those back out. So there's no reason they couldn't just refresh one of these events and go ahead and allow us to play for it. And I'm hoping they make the QB challenge a permanent one. That was awesome. It's my most favorite challenge I've done since the 2.0 release, since I started playing on the PlayStation 5. But I'm getting tired of not seeing these things in the events. And that's what I meant by the Hoyofication of this game, along with the thing of not being able to turn off sequences. That's another thing that a lot of people have been asking for in Genshin since the beginning, and Wuwa has as well, because us content creators can go ahead and use that, and like I mentioned before, it would make for better gameplay among all of us. But some of these things and everything else they haven't addressed. And they do take care of a lot of things, but I'm hoping that this doesn't go much too longer without these events. Now, the final problem I've had in Wuthering Waves is the lack of enemies, particularly in the Septimont region. If you go outside, where I did one of my beach videos with the Beach Boys of Carlotta and Chang Li, you'll notice that there's no enemies. There's nothing for me to fight on that side whatsoever. And there's other areas out in the open world that are like that as well, like areas like the Aveline Grand Remains. It's one of the story events, but it's a whole entire cool area that literally has nothing there. At the very least, they could have put some small mobs for us to go ahead and fight every day after doing the event stories. But there's sections of the whole entire region that are empty of anything. And that's something that I see in Genshin, and I don't want to see this in Wuwa. They should be addressing this by putting a little more enemies out for us to go and fight in these sparse areas where there's nothing there. So that way we have a reason to explore those areas. And I want to see this issue addressed as well. But instead, they seem to give these echo fields that we can go and farm in 30 seconds. For those of us like to explore, it doesn't do anything for us. I'd rather kind of track some of the enemies down. I like the fields for the quickness of it. However, they shouldn't ignore the enemies out in the open world. And that also ties to my earlier argument at the beginning of the video where I mentioned they need to make the open world harder as well, so we can actually do our own challenges and stuff with our friends on top of that. So if there's anything you think I've missed in this video or that I'm wrong about, please feel free to leave it in the comment sections below and let me know. And don't forget that I also go ahead and do music videos. And if you got a favorite character or song you'd like to go ahead and hear, I'm not going to charge you for it. I'm still a small channel. So if you'd like to go ahead and make some suggestions, I'd be open to go ahead and maybe doing some videos at your guys' request. So hit that like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys soon. And don't forget to check out my other videos that contain my commentaries covering everything from gotcha gambling to what characters might be best for your account. I hope to see you guys soon.